What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel and podcast network. Noah Hiles coming to you on Friday, August 29th, here from Boston, Massachusetts. Pirates about to start a 3-game weekend series against the Boston Red Sox, where there will be some fun pitching matchups. Rather than talking about the club's upcoming series, wanted to talk about a story that you can currently read at post-gazette.com. It's a story about the Pirates' top prospect, Konnor Griffin, written by yours truly. So I want to use today's video / podcast as an opportunity or as a way to promote that story, while also maybe giving a couple of extra details that didn't work their way into the story. There will be follow-up stories from my reporting on this. I spoke with like 20 people total for the story. So anytime you do something like that, you come away with a lot more than just one big piece typically. And that'll be the case here. There will be some follows that I'll use for my reporting on this. But there's a couple of interesting little tidbits that I'd like to share in this video. Before we get into all of that, though, I want to remind everyone to check out all of our work at the Post-Gazette at post-gazette.com. We print on Thursdays and Sundays. You can read the print product there, but every day we've got good stuff up there on the website, post-gazette.com. Get yourself a digital subscription if you don't have one already. And like I said, just keep tuning in because we have good stuff up there every day, not just Pirates coverage, all Pittsburgh sports coverage and all things non-sports as well, anything news related. We're there to cover it. So for my story on Konnor Griffin, we'll start at the very beginning of kind of my reporting here. I decided halfway through the season that I wanted to write something big on Konnor Griffin. I just remember in spring training watching him, and I'll even go back a little bit further. When he was drafted, I was a little skeptical of the pick just because it seemed like he was going to be a player that needed a lot of development at the plate, and the Pirates traditionally have not done well in that area. And he was young, he was toolsy, but needed a lot of work. And I just thought that this was another project that didn't seem to make a lot of sense for them. And I remember changing my entire tune when I watched him play in spring training. He really impressed me in the field as an outfielder. And the bat speed really caught my attention as well. And by the end of spring training, I remember leaving thinking that this was a guy who had a chance to end his season in Double-A. And a lot of people kind of thought I was nuts. But then when you saw the results in Low-A, and then when he got promoted to High-A, it became more realistic. And yeah, now he's the top prospect in baseball. So I thought it made perfect sense to write a big takeaway feature on this type of player because what he means to the Pirates organization, a guy who, I mean, he fills a lot of needs for their current major league team. If he can get here relatively soon, he's still only in Double-A and just got to Double-A, but being the number one prospect in baseball, playing that premier spot at shortstop, he's a big piece of the future and could be in the major leagues as early as next season. So I went down to Mississippi, spent some time with his family, spent some time with his coaches, some administrators who knew him, people who worked out with him, talked to people in the Pirates organization who worked with him, players, coaches, people, other former major leaguers who have either mentored him or just served as a facilitator and watched some of his workouts and gave feedback. And I learned a lot about the guy. I don't want to read the whole story here. I want you guys to everyone listening or watching, go read the story at post-gazette.com. Put a lot of work into it. I think you'll enjoy it. But to give like a quick outline of it, just to maybe draw you in if you're not already excited to read it. The story starts with something that's not really, it really hasn't been thoroughly reported. An incident that took place when Konnor was 8 years old, visiting his grandparents in Georgia. He and his brother were racing around their property. Konnor was on a go-kart. Cannon, his older brother, was on a dirt bike, and Konnor got into a really serious accident. It was nearly life-altering. And really since that moment, the whole family kind of views the fact that Konnor left the accident with just a broken nose and a gnarly scar that required 100 stitches as kind of a second chance. And he's tried to make the most of that opportunity to be able to start his baseball journey that might never have even happened if things just went a little different that day. So that's where the story starts. It talks about his progress at the youth level. He was a youth phenom to the point where Some teams couldn't handle playing him. A lot of people noticed his talent at a very young age. He hit home runs at 6 years old that went 200 feet. A lot of really good stories from the family in that section of the story. He really took off and established himself as a star. He was a D1 recruit by middle school, had SEC baseball schools offering him full scholarships. But then everything was good until his junior year, where he suffered an injury that kind of led to some of the criticism he received in his draft profile, but kind of also shaped him as the player that he is today. And then we finished off the story by just kind of talking about who Konnor Griffin is today, some cool anecdotes about what he was like around Jackson Prep, where he went to high school, and what people think his ceiling is as a baseball player. Got some really good insight from some people who, when you hear the players that Konnor gets compared to from these names, it's jaw-dropping. I mean, the one was Mark DeRosa. I talked to him in Atlanta during All-Star Week, and the conversation I had with him, and it might lead to another story, honestly, just to see people who have been around the game at a very high level for their whole life, pretty much, and to see what they compare this kid's potential to is pretty impressive. So that's the story outline. Again, go to post-gazette.com, check it out, give it a read, and let me know what you think. Shoot me an email, or comment on the story, or tell me on X, where the story is also promoted pretty heavily. So there's the outline. There's the whole process that went into it. I want to say 3 quick things here before we wrap up the video that did not get covered in the story. But before we do, we want to take a minute to hear from our show's presenting sponsor, Greenewalt Roofing.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenewalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years experience, Greenewalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense from rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenewalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenewalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenewaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
All right, 3 quick things that didn't make the story that I feel need to be shared, and I'll probably write about these, and there's a lot more that I'm saving for future stories on Konnor Griffin, because I think there's going to be a lot to write about for this guy. The first thing is there's a picture in the story of him and his brothers, Caden and Cannon, during the pandemic when everything was shut down. They played wiffle ball in their front yard, and I mentioned that briefly in the story, and there's the photo, but Connor's dad, Kevin, talked about this a little bit more, and he believes that Connor's hand-eye coordination was really developed from playing with what it's called a blitz ball. It's a wiffle ball that's designed to have extra break and movement, and he thinks because those 3 boys played in the front yard pretty much every day when the world was shut down in 2020, during a very pivotal time in Connor's development as a ball player when he was in his mid-teens, that helped him develop as a hitter. So I thought that was a cool little side story that, out of all the training that this kid's been through, it's playing wiffle ball in the front yard with his brothers that his father believes made him such a dynamic hitter. The second note that I wanted to make is how good he was as a pitcher. I don't feel like that's entirely known. It's probably known among like the draft community and people who like scouted him, but this is a guy, and I've had former major leaguers who've worked with him tell me this, that he probably could have been a 1st-round pitcher if he had went that route. If he decided to put the bat up for good and just focus on pitching, then he could have been a 1st-round draft pick potentially as a pitcher as well. I think his max velocity on the mound was 97. So he was recruited as a 2-way player and committed to LSU, and that stuff was known, but I don't think people recognize how good of a pitcher he was as well. I linked his high school stats in the story, and I think his senior year, he went 10-0 with an 0.72 earned run average, and was the ace of a team that had a lot of Division I talent. And the last thing that I'll note here, and this is the reward for those who stuck around for the very end, a really cool thing that did not make the story, just couldn't find a good place for it, was Konnor Griffin almost wasn't a Pirate. The plan probably wasn't for him to be a Pirate. The morning of draft day, the family thought he was going to be a Chicago White Sox. The White Sox were the team that showed the most interest in him. Two other teams that were really interested were the Brewers and the Cubs. They both had picks behind the Pirates in last year's draft, so he wasn't available when they were on the clock for their first pick. But the White Sox had the number 5 overall pick, and the whole family and everyone really attached to him really thought it was going to be the White Sox that picked Konnor Griffin. They instead picked a college arm, and allowed the Pirates to get him at number 9. So just think about that. I mean, if he was a Chicago White Sox, where would he be right now? And how would that organization feel having the top prospect in baseball? And who would the Pirates have drafted instead at number 9? It's kind of a little fun what-if game. So that's all I got for today. Again, please check out this story at post-gazette.com and keep tuning in here on the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel and podcast network for all things Pirates coverage.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.